So many people go through their whole lives leaving things up to chance. That is loser mentality. You have to understand how important it is to go all the way, to go the extra mile, to do things in such a way that it forces people to take note of you.
Never live your life in probability. Probability is the probability of something happening. There's a statistic attached to a probability. 1 in every 3,000 people do this. That's a probability. A possibility has no stats attached to it. Live your life in possibilities and you're changing. Just change the way you think.
Winners go so far and above and beyond what is actually expected that they force the result. You are in control of putting so much effort into something that people have to notice. You have to go that far. You have to force their eyeballs on you. You have to make people say, that guy's definitely the right guy for the job. Look how much better he is than everybody else.
You know what I thought to myself? I thought I would hate to live and die and never know what would happen if I ever committed myself to anything. Some people have never thrown their whole self at nothing. Not at school, not at work. Oh my God, you've had 1 foot in and 1 foot out of every dream all of your life, and you've never seen what you could be if you ever really connected and threw everything.
And the question is, if you died today, what ideas, what dreams, what abilities, what talents, what gifts will die with you?
We forget that you don't have to be famous to have the ability to change at least your own personal history, to change the direction we go in our life. We have the power to choose, even if you haven't before. You can finally say, no more, I won't put up with that, within myself or from anybody else. And here's what I'm going to do differently. That's where the breakthroughs really start to happen. Now the question is, why do some people stand their ground and make something change versus other people just kind of accept things?
The science of becoming successful is not what you do for a living. It ain't how much you make. It ain't none of that. It's simply how you think. If you change your thought, you change everything. You change your attitude, you change your altitude. It's all that. It's the law of attraction. Your attitude is everything. That's what money ain't everything, but it's very helpful. It ain't everything, but it's a lot.
It's not that easy as dropping out of law school. You've always wanted this. You've always worked for this. You've dreamt about this forever. And it's not going to leave you. That's why we say your dreams are kind of in the back of your mind. So you don't have a choice about this. If you've always wanted this, so you got to take care of the fact that you're grieving, and that's like riding waves of emotion.
That's taking control. That is not leaving things up to chance. This is a skill. This is not something you're gifted with. This is something you learn. It's something you practice. And eventually, yes, it does become a habit. But it's not one that people automatically have. You have to go the extra mile. You have to go all in. You have to quit leaving things up to chance if you want to win. Winners do not leave things to chance. They do everything that they possibly can, every single time, every single day, to win. They understand the last 20% is what separates them from everybody else. It's what separates you from where you want to be.
That drive and that attitude of never quit, it's a powerful force, and it does push you over the edge to victory in many cases. But over that attitude, you have to layer something on top of that. It's basically strategic vision and understanding of the battlefield as a whole. So you absolutely need to know when you got to stop beating your head against the wall. You got to know that.
Happiness is both a grasp of the obvious as well as an awe of the mysterious. But for most people around us, happiness seems to be either something left behind or something yet to be discovered. Like all the good things in life, happiness is elusive by nature, but not impossible to capture. A major key for bringing joy into our lives lies in the next word, discipline. If there is a magic word that stands out above all the rest, this is the one, discipline.
Predictability creates stability. Structure creates steadiness. You need to set and stick with a routine for the duration of this pandemic. Stop watching so much news, because it's all negative right now. And for your own mental and emotional and spiritual health, you need to monitor your media intake.
I made a decision, a very difficult decision. All of my work for all those years of filing, I made a decision to get rid of all of it. They're not relevant. They're not new. They're not fresh. They don't breathe. There's no fire and passion in them. I'm just going to say to you, it begins to help us to let go of the things that we have depended on the past so that we can go to an entire new level of living.
Happiness is contentment with the tasks of your life. It is thought inspired by, organized with, and rooted in your personal philosophy. Happiness is a life well lived, in which a wide variety of experiences are deliberately captured to become an invaluable form of currency for you to spend and invest in your own better future. Happiness is activity with purpose. It's love in practice.
You can take an introvert. You know you're an introvert if when you're around people, you get exhausted by it and you have to go off by yourself and recover. Then you're an introvert. And if you're an introvert, you don't really like being in groups. And so sales, maybe that's not for you, And that's a good thing to know, because if you're an introvert, why go be a salesperson and be miserable? Do something where you can spend time alone and not be miserable. That's better.
By reviewing your habits, you may find out that some of them are inhibiting your success. You may find out that what you're doing every day is bad for you. Or you may realize that you've gotten out of some very good habits. Somebody says, well, I've just gotten out of the habit of taking my daily walk around the block. Well, I guess you'll just have to get in the habit of being sick down the road. Somebody says, well, I used to read the books all the time. I've just gotten out of the habit. Then change it. Go back into your disciplines. If you've just gotten out of the habit, just get back into the habit. It's called discipline. If it doesn't work, don't do it any longer. You can keep your fingers crossed if you want to and hope that it'll all straighten out. You can wish for the wind not to blow quite as severely, to change in your favor, but we call that naive at best. If the habits that you've gotten into aren't serving you, change them. You can't keep doing this any longer. Don't wish for a better wind. The key is to wish for the wisdom to set a better sail. Utilize whatever wind that blows to take you where you want to go. That is the philosophy I picked up at age 25, and it revolutionized my whole life. And here's what I found. I found it was easy. I became a millionaire when I was 31, and I found it was easy. Now here's my definition of easy. It was something I could do. I figure if it's something you can do, it's easy. But here's a little parenthesis. I worked hard at it. I made sure my disciplines were in line. I made sure my habits were good. I made sure I did all that I could. I found something that I could do, but I worked hard at it. I got up early, stayed up late, and worked hard from age 25 to 31. But what I did was easy, meaning it was something I could do. Well, you say, Mr. Rohn, if it was so easy, How come during those 6 years, all those other people around you didn't get rich? Here's why. It's easy not to. How else would you describe it? That's it. It's easy to keep doing the things that don't work. It's easy to keep bad habits. It's easy not to develop the disciplines. It's easy not to. So how come I got rich and they didn't? Here's a philosophical phrase. The things that are easy to do are also easy not to do. That's the difference between success and failure, between daydreams and ambitions. Here's the key formula for success. A few disciplines practiced every day. And those disciplines have to be well thought out. What should you spend your time doing? Don't waste your time on things that aren't going to matter. But a few simple disciplines can change your whole economic future. Future with your family, future with your business, future with your enterprise, your sales career, your management career. A few simple disciplines. A few simple habits. Good habits. Repeated every day.
You're gonna face pressure, you're gonna face storms, you're gonna face suffering, but please understand, leg day, well, it's focusing on an area that you don't always focus on that seems unpleasant, and the best way to say it is live in harmony. Live in harmony with each other. But it's a lot of other parts coming together in harmony. It's a picture of what it looks like in our faith to walk with one another.
There are a lot of people that don't understand the power of laughter and the power of being joyful and deliberately feeling good. Does it mean that I don't have any challenges? Yes, I do. Stuff's happened to people that I care about.
I know it's easy to get glued to the internet, glued to social media, get glued to the TV, 24-hour news channels. But if you fill your mind with constant images of negative news, and they're just saying the same thing over and over, it's going to deplete your reserves, it's going to raise your stress level, and you don't need to hear the same negative story over and over and over.
I'm more creative today than I would have been if I'd have had those files. I test more than I would have been because what? That was a crutch to me. I was holding on to what I knew instead of letting go so I could grab hold of what I could become. So that's a huge word right now. Just be testing. It's going to make you the person you need to be during this time. Testing says that there's a better way, and failing says, I haven't found that way. Failing tells you that, I haven't found that way, but it also tells you getting closer to find that way.
Before you're going to have peace, you're going to have to make some decisions about some things. And the first decision you have to make is I am unwilling to live without peace. I will not live without peace. You see, I spent way too much of my life in turmoil. And maybe 15 years ago, I made a decision that I was going to have peace and I was going to have joy and I was going to have righteousness.
Now here's the formula for failure. Errors in judgment, repeated every day. All you've got to do is to have a few errors in your judgment and repeat them every day. I'm telling you, they'll spin out of control in 10 years. You'll end up driving what you don't want to drive, wearing what you don't want to wear, living where you don't want to live, earning what you don't want to earn. A few errors every day, bad habits every day, it's disastrous. Now here's why it's easy to repeat an error in judgment. Because failure doesn't fall at the end of the first day. Bad habits don't show their horrible results at the end of the first day, or the first week, or the first month. It's easy to get faked out. If disaster fell on us at the end of the first week, we'd change our philosophy. But it's so subtle. errors in judgment, bad habits. They're so subtle, they get you a little off course, a little off course, a little off course. You keep drifting off course, and all of a sudden you're caught. So you've got the choice right now of one of two easies: easy to do or easy not to do. I can give you in one sentence how I got rich by the time I was 31. I did not neglect to do the easy things I could do for 6 years. I did not neglect. That's the key. I found something easy I could do that led to fortune, and I did not neglect to do it. The major reason for not having more of what you want in America, more health, more money, more power, more influence, more everything, the major reason is simple neglect. Neglect. And if you don't take care of neglect, it becomes an infection, and then it becomes a disease. So if you're in the habit of not doing it, doing all it takes to get ahead, get in the habit of doing it. Doing all it takes. That's the first benefit of positive reinforcement, building good habits. Now, the second benefit of positive reinforcement is that it creates the energy to fuel additional achievement. It gives you the drive to do more, to not only keep on doing what's right, but to do more of what's right. The disciplines that will help you grow and get ahead of it all. The knowledge that what you're doing is paying off creates more energy to keep going. How easy is it to get up in the morning when you know you're not doing all that it takes? It's not very easy at all. You can just lay there awake thinking, oh, what's a few more minutes in bed? It won't matter much anyway. Wrong. It does matter. It will matter. Now, how easy is it to get up in the morning when you're pouring it on, doing the best you can, anxious to get going, make progress toward your dreams? It's a whole different story. When you're resting to renew your reserves, it's much different than resting to avoid your day. When you're psyched up and excited for your life, when you're excited for what you've planned to accomplish for the day, it's amazing. You'll wake up before the alarm clock even tries to startle you awake. Your successes fuel your ambition. Your successes give you extra energy. Your successes pave the way for more successes. It's the snowball effect. With one success, you're excited to meet another, and another, and another. And pretty soon, the disciplines that were so difficult in the beginning, the disciplines that got you going, are now part of your philosophy.
Let me tell you something I know for sure. If you want to be successful or happy in this life, you got to have God in your life. You ain't got to be perfect to have God in your life, because you're not perfect no way. You can't be perfect, man, but you can have a relationship with God. Everybody in this room is broken. That's what you need God for. Ain't no you more broken than somebody else. You broken. What difference do it make? If it's 3 people on a boat and a person dive off the boat to swim to shore, and he get 100 yards away from the boat and he drowned and sink, then the next person dive in the water and he get 500 yards, but he drowned and sink. And the last man get off the boat and he gets 6 feet away from shore and he died. Who the better swimmer? Y'all all drown. I don't care how far you go. You get as close as you want. We all gonna come short when it comes to perfection. God take you just the way you are. See, he take dudes like me, and he allows me to say some things on his behalf. And you may not like the way I say it, but I'm just telling you the truth, that you can be an imperfect person and have a relationship with God. You ain't got to believe it. Because once again, I'm not in the soul conversion business. But if you struggle and you're looking for a way out, I'm telling you that God is in the forgiving business, that God is in the make your dream come true business, that God is in the accept you as you are business. God took somebody like me and turned me into something. If it wasn't for God's grace, I can't even explain my career to nobody. They ask me all the time, how you get all these TV shows? I can tell you flat out, I have no idea. You know how hard it is to get one show on in Hollywood? Come out here and try to get a TV show. I got 8. That's called grace. That's because, man, if you ask God for something, he'll do exceedingly abundantly over all you think or ask. And all you got to do is honor him. So I'm standing here honoring him.
Most of the time we're praying, God, get me out of this challenge. Get me out of this financial setback. But before you get out, you have to invite God in. What's more powerful than God bringing you out is when God comes in and begins to change things. He comes in and gives you strength that you can't explain. Grace to outlast what should stop you. Sometimes it's taking longer than we thought. But when you ask God to come in, you can be at rest. God, I know you are ordering my steps, and at the right time, you'll get me to where I'm supposed to be. When you ask him in, you're saying, God, don't just change the circumstances, change me. Help me to grow through it. Help me to learn. Let my character come up higher. God works in the trouble. He works in the uncomfortable situations. Now, voices will whisper, God doesn't even hear your prayers. That's why nothing's changing. The truth is, God is setting you up to show out in your life. God said in Isaiah, when you go through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. Now, he said the challenges will come. But the whole key to this verse is when he said, I will be with you in the fire. Are you trying to get out of something that God is going to take you through? It's not fair. God, I can't take it anymore. Everything will change if you'll start inviting God into the fire. The right attitude is, God, I know you're going to bring me out, but in the meantime, I'm asking you to come into this loss I'm going through. Come into this depression that's trying to stop me. Is it a greater testimony that God kept you out of the fire, or that he came with you in the fire and brought you through it? When you know God is with you, you'll have a smile in the middle of the difficulty. You won't be complaining about the trouble. You'll be at peace in the midst of the storm. If you're only praying, God, get me out, you'll be discouraged until it changes. Joel, I can't enjoy my life. I'm dealing with an illness. My finances are low. When it turns around, then I'll have a good attitude. You have to do like David. Father, thank you that you are with me right here in this valley. Instead of just trying to get out of the valley, if you'll start saying, show me your greatness in this trouble, then you'll have a peace that passes understanding, a hope when you should be distraught. In the scripture, 3 Hebrew teenagers wouldn't bow down. The king was so furious, he threatened to have them thrown into a fiery furnace. He had the guards turn up the furnace 7 times hotter than normal. The fact is, God could have kept them out of the fire. He parted Red Seas. Would have been no problem for God to change the king's mind. But God doesn't deliver us from every fire. The good news is, God knows how to make you fireproof. People don't determine your destiny. Sickness, unfair situations don't have the final say. God doesn't stop every negative situation. He uses adversities to move us into our purpose. You wouldn't know he was a healer if you never had an illness. We wouldn't know he could move mountains if we never faced big obstacles. The enemy may have turned up the fire 7 times hotter than normal. They didn't do that without God's permission. When he's with you, you cannot be defeated. He's not limited by the fire, by the floods, by the famines. What should take you out cannot stop your destiny. If you'll recognize that God allowed the difficulty, but he allowed it because he had a purpose. And the purpose is not so you can live miserable. His purpose is to show his glory through you. Without great test, you won't have a great testimony. These teenagers said, we know our God will deliver us. Then they said something even more powerful. But even if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow down. When you can say, God, this is what I'm believing for, but God, even if it doesn't work out my way, I'm still going to give you praise. I'm still going to pursue my dreams. You're saying, God, not my will, but let your will be done. But too often, we're putting conditions on God. And God, I'll be happy if my boss moves to the backside of Mars. Then I'll have a good attitude. Have you ever thought God may be using that person to grow you up, to teach you to love those that are not very lovable? I'm asking you to start praying, God, help me to have a good attitude. Help me to do the right thing when the wrong thing is happening. Because sometimes God is waiting for us to pass the test before He brings us out. The king had the guards tie up the teenagers' hands with cords. And they threw them into the furnace. It looked like this was the end for the teenagers, but people don't have the final say. In a little while, the king came to check on them. He said, didn't we throw 3 men in bound? I see 4 men loosed. God may not keep you out of every fire, but don't worry, He'll help you overcome what looks impossible. We know that God is always with us, but when you're in difficulties and you invite Him in, you're going to feel His presence in a greater way. When you get thrown into the fire, so to speak, you'll stay in faith, knowing that the 4th man is right there with you. The God who heals, who pays you back for the injustice, is right there watching over you, ordering your steps. That obstacle may be too much for you, but it is not too much for our God. He's keeping the fire from burning you. He's your protector, your waymaker, your healer. You don't have to do this on your own. You have to walk by faith and not by sight, knowing that He's promised everything is going to be all right for you. You may be in the fire now, but this is not the time to complain. More than ever, you need to start saying, thank you that no weapon formed against me is going to prosper. God, I am not going to worry. I trust you. When the teenagers came out, the only thing the fire burned were the cords that were holding them back. When you come out of that difficulty, the only things that are going to be gone are the limitations that are holding you back. Burn off negative mindsets. Burn off relationships that were pulling you down. You're going to come out free, confident, victorious, ready to fulfill your destiny.